When you really think about it, football is just incredibly fragile. It's a sport built entirely on inches, split seconds, and decisions made in the absolute blink of an eye. We spend so much time debating the history of the beautiful game as if it was always destined to happen exactly the way it did. But what if it wasn't? What if a single phone call, a rejected contract, or just one tiny moment of madness went completely differently? Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely tear up the history books. Today, we're diving headfirst into football's greatest what-ifs to see just how easily the entire landscape of the sport could have been rewritten. Today, we're diving into 5 massive alternate timelines. We'll look at the alternate realities of the GOATs, the ones that got away, a split second of madness, time-traveling the Invincibles, and we'll wrap things up with the truth about the awards. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. Alternate realities of the GOATs. So, what if Messi and Ronaldo actually took completely different paths?
Okay, let's talk about the two guys who basically are modern football. Their legacies feel so permanent now, right? But they were built on totally precarious foundations. Just imagine this wild scenario for a second. What if Lionel Messi signed for Chelsea when he was just 13 years old? We all know the famous story of that contract signed on a literal napkin back in 2000, where Barcelona agreed to pay for a young Messi's growth hormone treatment. But at that exact time, other massive clubs were circling. Chelsea was heavily reported to be interested. Imagine a world where Barcelona hesitates, they refuse to sign the napkin, and Chelsea steps in to pay those medical bills instead.
Let's track the butterfly effect here. Say it's 2001, and Messi officially joins the Chelsea Academy. Fast forward to 2003, Roman Abramovich buys the club, injecting literally unlimited funds right as Messi is developing. By 2004, at just 17, he makes his Premier League debut. But he's doing it in England. He's facing way harder, brutal tackles from the likes of Stoke City and Bolton Wanderers, rather than developing his game over in La Liga. Now, between 2008 and 2014, with that legendary Chelsea core behind him, he undoubtedly wins 4, maybe even 5 Premier League titles. But here's the absolute crucial question. Does he still hit 672 career goals? See, Messi at Barcelona wasn't just a player on a team. Their entire bespoke tiki-taka system was built perfectly around his exact spatial needs. Without that highly specific environment, his brilliance might have looked very, very different.
All right, flipping over to the other side of the GOAT debate. What if Cristiano Ronaldo never left Manchester United in 2009? We all remember that mind-blowing £80 million transfer to Real Madrid. Sir Alex Ferguson actually later called letting him go one of his hardest decisions ever, but it was just an offer that was impossible to refuse. But what if Ferguson simply said no? What if he refused the money and kept Ronaldo right in Manchester for his absolute peak athletic years?
If Sir Alex holds on to a peak Ronaldo, United almost certainly reach at least 3 more Champions League finals. They easily secure 4 more Premier League titles, basically delaying the whole Manchester City rise to power by years. And down in Spain, that modern Real Madrid Galacticos era just never really gets off the ground. Madrid might have tried to build around Kaká instead, but without Ronaldo's sheer, relentless drive, they just aren't the same beast. And fascinatingly, Messi's Ballon d'Or rivalry, it practically vanishes without that direct, head-to-head Madrid versus Barcelona narrative every single week. Ronaldo could have retired with 5 Champions Leagues won at one single club, completely cementing him as the undisputed greatest in English football history. But we'd potentially lose that global, decade-long rivalry we actually got.
Moving on to part 2, the ones that got away. We're looking at transfers that almost completely broke the game.
These are those crazy sliding doors moments in the transfer market that leave fans literally dreaming about what could have been. First up, what if Kylian Mbappe had actually joined Real Madrid back in 2022? This saga still feels incredibly fresh, doesn't it? He basically had a verbal agreement to join Los Blancos. He was standing right at the altar, but then backed out at the absolute last second to sign a new deal with PSG, reportedly after direct conversations with French President Emmanuel Macron. The domino effect of that delay is just devastating to think about. If he makes the move in the summer of 2022, he links up with Karim Benzema and Vinicius Jr. at their absolute apex. That creates an instant, terrifying dynasty. Then, a happier, highly settled Mbappe heads into the Winter 2022 World Cup and arguably pushes France to back-to-back victories over Argentina. By spring 2023, Real Madrid likely wins another Champions League with his added firepower, and Mbappe easily secures the 2023 Ballon d'Or. We obviously did get this transfer eventually in 2024, but guys, 2 years is an absolute lifetime in football. The Benzema window closed, and what could have been pure immediate magic turned into a slightly delayed, very different reality.
Let's rewind a bit to another crazy near miss. What if Arsenal managed to sign Ronaldinho in 2003? That summer was pure chaos. Manchester United missed out on him over a work permit issue, and he famously picked Barcelona over PSG. But Arsene Wenger's Arsenal? They were heavily in the conversation. Imagine if Wenger had pushed just a tiny bit harder to bring him to North London.
Just close your eyes and picture this unstoppable attacking force for a second. Ronaldinho, Henry, Pierce, and Bergkamp. Seriously, imagine a prime Ronaldinho gliding around Highbury, effortlessly nutmegging Premier League defenders left and right. That 2003-2004 Arsenal team obviously already went unbeaten, but injecting Ronaldinho's pure, joyous creativity into that exact squad, it makes them genuinely unfair. It practically guarantees Wenger multiple Champions League trophies throughout the 2000s and sets up an untouchable decade-long dynasty that completely insulates Arsenal from the incoming financial power of Chelsea.
Which brings us to part 3, a split second of madness. Let's talk about the 108th minute of the 2006 World Cup final. It is undeniably the most iconic yet completely tragic moment of madness in football history. Zinedine Zidane, playing literally the final professional game of his magnificent career, headbutts Marco Materazzi in extra time and gets a straight red card. France goes on to lose on penalties. But what if Zidane just keeps his cool? What if he hears the insult, turns around, and just walks away?
Let's map out how those alternate final 12 minutes of extra time would play out. 108 minutes on the clock, Zidane walks away. France keeps all 11 guys on the pitch. You've got a fresh, highly motivated Zidane pulling the strings, carving up a completely exhausted Italian defense. Let's say 117th minute, France bags a late winner, entirely dodging the penalty shootout. In this reality, Zidane retires as a back-to-back-to-back legend, holding the 1998 World Cup, Euro 2000, and the 2006 World Cup. It is a completely 100% flawless legacy.
But you know, there's a saying. Sometimes the tragedy is what makes the legend. If Zidane simply walks away and wins the whole thing, sure, his career ends perfectly. But that headbutt? Honestly, it made him beautifully, deeply human. The image of a disgraced Zidane walking down the tunnel, right past that golden World Cup trophy without even glancing at it, man, it is perhaps the most poetically tragic image in the history of sports. Winning might have ironically robbed football of one of its most emotionally resonant moments ever.
All right, part 4, time traveling the Invincibles. We're pitting the 2003-2004 Arsenal squad against today's Premier League. Let's run a little simulation here. Imagine taking that legendary 2004 Arsenal squad, handing them modern sports science, and dropping them right into today's incredibly physically punishing league. The case for them dominating is honestly pretty solid. Thierry Henry's pace and finishing? Completely timeless. Patrick Vieira's sheer physical presence in midfield would still totally overwhelm opponents today. Plus, Wenger's diamond formation remains tactically brilliant. But you have to look at the case against them. Today's relentless, suffocating high press from teams like Pep Guardiola's City or Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool would expose Lehmann to pressure he rarely ever had to face. Add to that their historic vulnerability on set pieces and the absolute brutal, grueling squad depth required for a modern 38-game season with massive European commitments.
Which naturally leads us to this massive number, 49, the historic 49-game unbeaten streak. So how does our simulation actually play out? Well, they definitely finish in the top 4. They probably even win the league, because let's face it, Henry is bagging 25 goals against any defense in any era. But that unbeaten streak? No way. It absolutely gets broken. The modern game is just way too fast, and the tactical depth across the whole league is too vast. They'd inevitably slip up and lose on a wet Tuesday night at Anfield or just get caught totally off guard by City's press.
Finally, we arrive at part 5, the truth about the awards. Let's look at a purely statistical Ballon d'Or.
The Ballon d'Or is obviously football's ultimate individual prize. But let's be real, it is deeply influenced by media narratives, club politics, and long-standing reputations. But what happens if you judge the awards solely on cold, hard numbers? Just goals, assists, and trophies won? Well, the history books look shockingly different. In 2003, it shouldn't have been Pavel Nedved or Ronaldo. Strictly by the numbers, Thierry Henry was the most dominant player walking the earth. In 2007, Kaká wins cleanly in both realities, which is great. But look at 2010. Wesley Sneijder won the treble with Inter Milan and literally reached the World Cup final, but the emotional voting handed it to Messi. It's kind of an uncomfortable reality to admit, but football has spent the last 20 years rewarding beautiful narratives and global brands over undeniable statistical dominance.
Just look at this number, 56. That is the jaw-dropping number of goals Robert Lewandowski scored in the 2021 calendar year. 56. Yet the voters somehow handed the award to Messi, mostly seen as a consolation prize for the canceled 2020 award. When you look at 56 goals, you're looking at raw, undeniable, literal machine-like output that got completely robbed by emotional voting. Stripping away the politics forces us to see the game without our rose-tinted glasses for once.
And that brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer. Football is, without a doubt, the most fragile sport on earth. Whether it's a 13-year-old's medical bill, a split second of red mist in a World Cup final, or just the subjective stroke of a journalist's pen, the history we just accept as permanent was always hanging by a thread. But honestly, the unpredictable, totally messy, entirely chaotic nature of these alternate timelines is exactly why we are so incredibly obsessed with this sport. It's the very fragility of the game that makes the actual history so compelling in the first place.
So, I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Looking at the crazy scenarios we just tore apart, which of these what-ifs do you think would have created the biggest butterfly effect? Which one would have completely shattered and rebuilt football history the most? Was it Messi going to Chelsea, Zidane actually showing some restraint, or maybe Mbappe pulling the trigger on Madrid early? Dive into the details, wear it up, and let me know your thoughts. Keep questioning the game, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.